I got a bone to pick with ESPN's FBI for their SEC predictions. There's a lot of disrespect being shown on this thing. First of all, we got to talk about South Carolina being behind Ole Miss and Auburn. Both Ole Miss and Auburn are being incredibly overhyped this year. Jackson Arnold was the same quarterback who got benched by Oklahoma last year because he was so bad, especially with how he was just turning the football over left and right, that you would have thought that Vegas and him had something going on where he was intentionally throwing games. Ole Miss, they lose a lot of talent from last year's team, and they didn't replace all of it through the portal. Yeah, they've recruited okay, but they don't recruit at the level where they just simply reload and they are right back being a 9-10 win team. They're bound to come back down to earth just a little bit this year. I see them more as an 8-win team. South Carolina, they do lose a lot of talent on their defensive line from last year, but they got one of the most experienced secondaries in the SEC this year. You also have two of the best players in this conference in Josiah Stewart and Lenore Sellers. And when you have two players as good as what those two guys are at two of the most impactful positions in the game, they're good enough to take over certain ball games where they can just carry you to wins. And also, you have Nick Harbor, who's going into his second or third season at South Carolina. He's a breakout candidate to look out for on that offense at wide receiver. Their offensive line should be really good. South Carolina is one of those teams that you can't judge off paper. You got to judge them by how hot they were during the second half of last season. Oklahoma being at 10, it's just downright disgusting. Auburn should definitely be beneath them because Oklahoma has completely improved in every aspect on offense. You got John Mateer, who was the best quarterback during the portal cycle in the winter. Then you also got Jaden Nault, who was the number one running back during the spring portal window. Your offensive line should be really good. We know Oklahoma has receivers. They always do a pretty good job of having talent at that spot. And the defense should still be as good as what it was last year when you got Brent Venables taking back over the play calling. So I don't really understand why the FPI is high on Ole Miss and Auburn, but low on South Carolina and Oklahoma. I do know that their algorithm or their model does take into account recruiting very heavily, but they might have to tweak that just a tad bit because Florida has recruited just as good as what Auburn has. And they also have way more proven production going into this year than what Auburn has. Florida's top 10 and returning starters this year, especially when you have DJ Lagway with all of this offseason hype he's been getting. 12 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, never looked more good. And you also got a really good defense this year with Tyreek Sapp, Caleb Banks. Florida should be way higher on this thing than what they are. Having Auburn and Ole Miss over them, I really don't get it. And even Missouri. And I'm not the biggest fan of Missouri this year. I feel they're pretty overhyped too. But Eli Drinkowitz has had back-to-back 10-win seasons. He's done a really good job, him and his staff, of making good pickups in the transfer portal. And their recruiting is also pretty good. But the biggest hypocrisy of them all with ESPN's FPI predictions for the standings in the SEC is how high they have Texas, or not Texas, but Tennessee, with everything that they had to replace. They lose 4 starters on the offensive line. They lose their 3 top receivers from last year. They lose a bunch of production on the defensive line, and they are incredibly thin in the secondary. Their best cornerback, Jamal McCoy, he had an ACL injury at the start of this year, and we don't even know when he's going to be healthy enough to play this season. So for Tennessee to be this high with everything that they lose, but Oklahoma and Florida are even lower than what they are, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Tennessee has more to replace than what South Carolina, Oklahoma, and Florida do, and they don't even recruit at a higher level than either OU or Florida. So I don't really get the logic with that one. I don't know what the FPI has in their algorithm that led for them to put Tennessee at 5, but they definitely need to drop a few more spots. And that's really the biggest issues that I have with this. You can nitpick some of the other teams that are high on this thing, like Texas A&M. Texas A&M has a solid squad. I'm not denying that, but that defense, they fell off during the second half of last season. They also lost 3 out of their last 4, especially that bowl loss to USC. And the reason why that bowl loss matters is because a lot of the guys that played in this game are going to be starting this year. Marcel Reed, he was like up and down near the tail end of 2024 also. So I think with Texas A&M, the hype is justified somewhat, but I definitely would have had Oklahoma and Florida above them. And this is just my thoughts on the FPI disrespecting the Gators and the Sooners this year. There's no way Ole Miss, Auburn, and Tennessee should be above them. They need to recalibrate this thing, and they need to update the algorithm because this shit's all jacked up.